Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and today I'm going to do a mix of freestyle and a PowerPoint presentation. And I want to talk about the balance of power featuring the three branches of government. A balance of power featuring three branches of government. Now, the reason why I want to present this information is because there are a lot of us who don't know how the government works. Many of us tend to look at everything from the federal side of issues. But remember, we have elections that involve the midterm elections, which we are electing senators and Congress persons and some gubernatorial race. And then we have smaller local elections where we are getting into mayoralships, some gubernatorial races, superintendents. Now, even here in the state of Indiana, we elect sheriffs and surveyors, county execs. And it's very important that you understand that the three branches of government work not just in the federal government, but in the local governments and state governments as well. A lot of us talk about the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, but that's the federal court, but each state has the Supreme Court. Now, to bring the Supreme Court up into the mix, what we're going through right now, the left seems to have the Supreme Court stymied, particularly with this situation on this father who was a MS-13 gang member who is from Maryland. Now, I'm going to say this and nobody wants to hear it. That former gang member who's in jail down at El Salvador, well, he's probably going to be returned, and this is why. He was granted political asylum. Now, when I look at the Democratic Party, they don't go by the balance of power. And this brought me to do this video. There was this black woman, and you black women, you do not need to have a microphone. You don't even need to be in politics because you don't know what you're doing. But this black woman says, well, we're not afraid of Donald Trump. And when Hakeem Jeffries becomes the Speaker of the House in 2026, in other words, we're not going to wait 4 years. We're going to wait 2 years. Well, that's what you're saying. You're going to wait 2 years. But the way you Democrats are going, particularly you far left Democrats, if the American public is smart, they're not going to vote for you. Now, Donald Trump does need to get the tariffs in control because when it comes to Americans, I'm just going to say this again, Americans are stupid. Even some of the MAGA people out there, they can be convinced. Why? Because most people in this country don't have abreast of the issues. That's on the left and on the right side. So Americans can be persuaded by both sides. Now, you have more people on the left, and really the left, what they want a communist country. And what the left is doing, they're utilizing the court systems to basically slow down Donald Trump's agenda. Now, this is what the American people need to look at. American people voted for deportation. Now, you're not going to deport 15 million people. That's not going to happen. So you have to cut it down to the criminals because there are some individuals who work very hard. Now, the problem with the immigrants coming into this country is many of them are coming in and they're getting on the welfare system, and the Democrats want to make them instant citizens, so they will vote Democrat in every election. Therefore, we will have a one-party government and the Democrats will run everything. But that's on the federal side. But when it comes to the state side, there are 50 states. And there are a number of red states and then a number of blue states. I live here in Indiana, and Indiana is a red state. Now, for the Democrats out there, you're talking about winning the House in 2026. Remember, the Democrats still hold a slim majority, and all the Republicans have to do is win about 10 to 15 more seats. That's all they need. Now, what the Democrats really want to do, if they do not win both houses of Congress in 2026, they want to wait till Trump gets out of office, and then they're going to try to prosecute him then. So this is the whole game that they're playing, because the Democrats want to stay in power. They want all of us to be under the control of government. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you this PowerPoint presentation so you'll understand what I'm talking about. And we talk about the balance of power here. And the balance of power starts with the three branches of government. Many people don't know that. I've seen videos out there where individuals were asked, what are the three branches of government? And this is your public school system. You have a lot of dummies. And this is the problem with this country. Americans are just dumb people, a number of them. That's the fact. But when we start off with three branches of government, we start off with the executive branch. Now, this is a review because I already did a video a month ago on the three branches of government. This one is the balance of power with the three branches of government. So it's going to be a little bit of a review on how the three branches of government really work. It's going to be a short PowerPoint presentation, but we're going to begin with the executive branch. And the person who is the top executive is the President of the United States. He is the leader of the executive branch. And the president's duties are to enforce federal laws and recommend new ones. The president will also serve as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. That's the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And it's also the president's duties to meet with leaders of other countries. Then you have the president's cabinet. Now, of course, just like a corporation, you have the CEO. Well, the president is the chief law enforcement officer in the country. The president has the highest office in land. However, the president also has term limits. And this is basically because of Roosevelt during World War II served 3 or maybe 4 terms before he passed away. Now, carrying out the laws of the United States is a big job. So, to help the president, there are other personnel. The president has a vice president and department heads who advise the president on issues and they help him carry out the policies. Now, when it comes to the vice president, one must understand the vice president is also, although he's second in command to the president, the vice president is also a president as well. The vice president is the president of the Senate. And basically, what the vice president does, he will cast the tie-breaking vote. Kamala Harris did it. J.D. Vance did it when Pete Hegseth was confirmed to be the Secretary of Defense. Now, the vice president serves again as president of the Senate and becomes president if the president can no longer do the job. Leaders in each department are called secretaries, and the secretaries make up the cabinet. Now, if you think about that, if you look at an organizational chart, you look at a corporation. The United States is a corporation. And you can compare that to a private corporation where you have your board of directors. Now, what is your board of directors? Well, your board of directors in the government would be Congress. Why? Because the Congress, they can have votes to basically take the president out of office through impeachment. But that's only the Senate. Now, if you look in a regular corporation, you have your president, your vice president, you might have your senior executives, but then you have your department heads. Under your department heads, you have everybody else. This is why you have so many levels in corporations. Well, the same thing happens in the United States government. Then there are cabinet departments. I'll give you an example. And this one is probably going to get defunded, or it may not exist any longer. It came about in 1979 under the Carter administration, and we're talking about the Department of Education. And the Department of Education is there to provide money for public schools and loans to help people attend college. It makes sure there is equal access to education, and it promotes educational assistance throughout the nation. Then you have your DOT, Department of Transportation. They're in charge of highway planning and construction. That's right. Remember, there is the federal Department of Transportation. Now, what is under the federal Department of Transportation? Your FAA, your FHWA. The Coast Guard used to be under the Department of Education. Then during wartime, the Coast Guard becomes part of the Navy, but I believe the Coast Guard is now part of the Department of Homeland Security. So basically, when you have your DOT, not only do they plan and construct projects, they also look at car, truck, air, and railroad safety and the safety of waterways, ports, highways, and oil and gas pipelines. Then if you want to deal with farming, then you look at the Department of Agriculture. And that agency works to support families and to expand and develop markets abroad for agricultural products. And it also protects quality in the daily food supply. And when it comes to our taxes, our money, you have the Department of the Treasury, recommends ways to help the economy, and it manufactures coins and money, and it also collects taxes. And we have our cabinet departments. You see what's going on here? There are a lot of layers in the government, and we are still on the executive side. Now, when it comes to, when I served in the military and under a cabinet department, you have the DOD, the Department of Defense. It is responsible for providing the military forces. And the military forces, we need them to protect the security of our country. Then we have the Department of Health and Human Service, and they look after people's health, and they provide services to include conducting medical research, preventing diseases, and assuring the safety of food and drugs. And then we get to the DOE, the Department of Energy, and they do a lot of research and they develop energy systems that are friendly to the environment, but not too expensive. Then there are other departments in the president's cabinet, and they are the Commerce. So you have a Commerce Secretary, the DOJ, which is under the Attorney General, and that's the Department of Justice. You have the Department of Labor. You have the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Interior, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Department of the Homeland Security, and Department of the State. Now we move on to the judicial branch, and it is a branch of government made up of the court system. Now, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and it was established by the Constitution. Other federal courts were established by Congress. So that means if you're going to become a judge of the Supreme Court and their federal courts, like the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, well, all of the judges are selected by the president and they must be confirmed by the Senate. And this is why this branch is very important, because this is the branch right now that Joe Biden, before he left to stop Trump's agenda, because apparently the playbook of the Democrats is they knew Joe Biden wasn't going to win. So Joe Biden decided to pick judges before he left. And those judges are in power. They're liberal activist judges. And the judge's job is not to legislate from the bench. The judge is not a legislator. The judge is a litigant. In other words, or judge is the interpreter of the law. A litigant is, we start to get into lawyers. Now, when we talk about the Supreme Court and federal courts, well, they have their arguments, and their arguments analyze or interpret the meanings of laws, how laws are applied, whether laws break the rules of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court. Of course, the Supreme Court hears cases that have made their way through the lower court system. There are more than 7,500 cases sent to the Supreme Court each year. Believe me, Donald Trump is going to be sending some cases to the Supreme Court. So Donald Trump must have the Supreme Court on their side. Now, the problem that I have with the judicial branch, it's also been politicized. And that's not what government is supposed to be. Now, there's going to be politics everywhere you go, but these judges, particularly these liberal judges, they're activist judges. In other words, they're making up their own laws and they're going to the media, and this is what the media does. The media is very good at deception. And the media is for dumb people, people who don't research. So what I'm doing here is I'm giving you information on what you need to know about the three branches of government. Now, generally, getting back to the Supreme Court, after 75 cases are sent to the Supreme Court each year, 7,500 cases. Now, if you think about this, not many of them are actually accepted. Only 80 to 100% are accepted. There are 9 Supreme Court justices. One of the 9 is the Chief Justice. Now, Chief Justice Roberts. He's the one. Then you have Sotomayor, Ketanji Jackson. But Chief Justice, he was actually picked by George Bush. Now, the justices of the Supreme Court, and there are 9 of them, Clarence Thomas is the oldest one on the bench. He came in right about 91, 92. Then you have a few other ones. But the justices of the Supreme Court are appointed by the president and approved by the Senate, and they can serve for life. Now, there are some questions on should judges be lifetime appointments? Well, I would have to ask the same question to the legislative branch. Should Congress personnel and senators continually be elected? This is why we have the problems now, because the president is the only one who can do 2 terms. And on that note, we get to the legislative branch, and that's made up of 2 parts, the House of Representatives and the Senate. They make up the U.S. Congress. And again, the House of Representatives and the Senate, they meet at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., and the primary duty of the legislative branch is to write, debate, and pass bills, which are then passed on to the president for approval to become laws. Now we get to the House of Representatives. So in the House, representation is based on a number of people living in each state. Therefore, states with larger populations have more representation than states with smaller populations. So each state has at least 1 representative in the House. And this is what makes up the Electoral College. And this is why states like New York and California can dictate who wins the elections because they have the larger populations. Of course, you have Texas and you have Florida as well, but New York and California, and it seems to be a problem because New York and California, they're both Democratic. Now, if you look at my PowerPoint, Delaware only has 1 representative. 1. Well, it's at least 1. Pennsylvania has 19. In the House of Representatives, each representative serves a term of 2 years. When the term is over, people from that state may choose to elect a new representative or keep the same one. Thinking of running for representative from your state, you must be at least 25 years old, be a U.S. citizen for the past 7 years, and you must live in the state that you represent. Now we go to the senior circuit, known as the Senate. So basically, we have 50 states. So each of the 50 states sends 2 people to the Senate. So there are a total of 100 senators. This means that each state has equal representation in the Senate. This is why we have the Electoral College. So basically, when you put the House of Representatives together and you put the Senate together, this is where you get a total of the 535, because you have 435 members in the House, 100 senators. Now, I live here in the state of Indiana. So that means here in the state of Indiana, we have 2 senators and we have 9 congresspersons who represent the House of Representatives. And you have a number of red states. Thank goodness there's Texas and a number of the populated red states that can help get the Republicans over the top. But you still need some blue state personnel as well. And it's very important that you understand the Senate and the House, because these are the individuals that are going to be coming up in a midterm for election. Now, each senator serves a term of 6 years. When their 6-year term is over, the people from the state may choose to elect a new senator or keep the same one. So if you're thinking about running for a Senate seat, you must be at least 30 years old, be a U.S. citizen for the past 9 years, and of course, live in the state that you represent. Now, special duties of the legislature. In addition to making laws, the House and the Senate each have some special duties. Now, the Senate can vote on any treaties the president makes. The Senate will review and approve presidential appointees, such as cabinet secretaries and Supreme Court justices. They also may hold a trial for a government official who does something wrong. A House of Representatives recommend tax bills to become law. Now, when you hear the word tax bills, what does that mean? Well, the House, what they do, the House has the purse strings. So basically, when a bill is made by a House, you may hear HR 100, and then it'll go over to the Senate. They'll look at it. They put what they want in that bill. Now, sometimes that bill may go back to the House so they can review it, because the Senate might not like something that the House put in that bill. So they may ask the House to review that bill again, add or take something out, and then it could go back to the Senate. And once everything is finalized by the legislature, then it goes to the president to sign it in law. Now, here's what the president can do. And I wish there were a such thing as a line item veto, where the president could look at certain items, and if he doesn't like it, he can veto it. Well, if the president doesn't like the bills, he can veto it. And what happens when a bill is vetoed? Well, two things. It's going to go back to Congress and they'll review it, or Congress, and I believe it's 2/3 or 3/4 of the Congress, they can override that veto. So that law that the president just vetoed can still become a law. Now, also the House of Representatives, once we deal with the tax bills to become law, they can decide if a government official should be put on trial before the Senate if she commits a crime or he commits a crime against the country. And this is where we get into impeachment. The legislature cannot, well, the House of Representatives, they could put a president up for impeachment. Bill Clinton was put up for impeachment. He was never removed from office because it didn't get to the Senate. Neither was Donald Trump, who was impeached twice. So basically, the House of Representatives, they carry the purse strings. They're the junior circuit of the Congress. And basically, if you want to get into a Senate position, in my humble opinion, you should be a member of the House of Representatives for at least 6 years and then get into a Senate position. And then you could probably move into a vice president position if elected. Now, did you know when Philadelphia was the capital of the United States, the House and Senate met in Independence Hall? The Senate met on the upper floor and the House met on a lower floor. Even today, the Senate is referred to as the upper house, and the House of Representatives is called the lower house. And to dig a little deeper, and in my comment section, if you want to participate, I want you to answer these questions. Tell me what state you're from. Who is your representative? How long have they been in office? What are some of their ideas on the issues that you're interested in? Do you have some of the ideas of your own? Also, have you ever written to your congressperson or your senators? We'll find contact information at this website, www.contactingthecongress.org. Now, I shared that information to you because the Democratic Party doesn't believe in a balance of power. It is very funny that during the 4 years of Joe Biden, in fact, Joe Biden was out there parading on how he believed that President Trump messed up the country. Nobody did a worse job than Joe Biden. And I do believe that there are a lot of Obama operatives that were behind Joe Biden. And there are a number of, again, the judges. And this is the Democratic playbook. And you have to look at the big picture of the Democrats. They don't care anything about this country. See, they're using this Maryland father who was part of the MS-13 gang. They sent him back to El Salvador. That's just a crutch. What the Democrats want, they don't want tax cuts. They don't want no tax on tips. They don't want capitalism. You see where I'm going with this? They don't want deportation. This is why you have a number of these Democrats, they're going down there and they're trying to take up for this one person. Well, Tom Homan, who is the border czar, which that was Kamala Harris's job, Kamala Harris did nothing. Tom Homan, we know they can't get all 15 million people who came across the border illegally out, so they're looking at the criminals. Now, here's what you can do for a number of these illegals: cut the welfare off. And I'm saying that because if the Democrats, and I want you American people to wisen up, you want to really be awake on this. When it comes to the welfare money, some of you who aren't working probably have worked, but you pay taxes. Well, why fight for something if you got one party that wants to give it away? The Democrats want to give their money away to Ukraine. They want DEI. Now, I'm not against diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I mean by diversity, there's no such thing as equity. There is a such thing as inclusion. What I want is a system based on merit. Now, I know you have a lot of theories that are put out there when it comes to systems. I know the forefathers had this system of government because they didn't want to be reined in by a king. When they came over here from Britain, they wanted independence from Britain. So they established a government that would have the balance of power. And then there was a constitution that was established with a preamble and a Bill of Rights. Well, each state has a constitution as well. They follow the same procedure, each state and each local government. And this is what I'm talking about when you are dealing with government. I gave you information about the federal branch, but the state and local government run the same way. They might call them different names, like in a city. The city has a mayor. You might have a deputy mayor for the second person in control. Now, what would be the legislation for a city? Well, they're called council people. That's what they are, councilmen and councilwomen. They also have a court. The state, they have a governor, lieutenant governor. They have secretaries. They also have a DOT. Each state has a DOT. Each state has its own agriculture. Each state. So basically, the states, they can make their own rules. However, when there is something federal involved in that state, you have to remember that federal law will always trump state law. This is what people do not understand. And see what the Democrats are doing. They're going out there lying. They're having these protests and these town hall meetings that are being established by the Democrats. They're being paid activists. So you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and these Republicans speaking at town hall meetings, because what the congresspersons do, they go out to their districts and they hear from their constituents. Well, we know that the constituents, look at the ones who were at these town halls. Well, they were Democratic operatives. You see what the Democrats are trying to do. The Democrats, they don't play by the rules. The Democrats are the ones who cheat. You know, all those votes that they had during the 2020 election, where are they now? And the Democrats, they really want to bring that authoritarian style of government to the American people because they want more and more of our money so they can stay in power. And my job here on the 401 Talk Zone radio showing we need other people. We have to keep them out of power. This is where your vote does count. Now, what these Democrats are doing, they're actually going on to media outlets that are very liberal, and these media outlets are lying. And they're utilizing the Democrats know they can go to these outlets. We got people like Hakeem Jeffries. Who would want him as the House Speaker? You think about this now. Hakeem Jeffries, do you know that the Speaker of the House, it's one thing that nobody has told you if you don't know about government. If something happened to the president, then the vice president would take control. Well, you know, the Speaker of the House is third in command. That's what it is. People don't know that. This is why you need to beef up and understand civics. It's important that you understand that in order for a president to be elected, you can count this. Now, for every other position in politics, whether it's state and local government, whether you are running for a Senate seat, a state Senate seat, a state house, you have to win with the popular vote. The president and the vice president are the only ones who need 270 electoral college votes. And there have been cases, 2 since I've been around, and they've been recent, where the president was elected on just the electoral college alone. And the 2 presidents were Republican presidents. George Bush. Now, George Bush won a second term when he won the popular and the electoral college. Donald Trump was the next one. He won the electoral college when he ran the first time. This time he won the popular vote and the electoral college. Now, what the Democrats are missing out here is when we look at, and I'm going to break it down when it comes to gender. When it comes to men, most men are going to vote Republican. Maybe not most black men, but you're going to have a number of Hispanic men, and you don't even need 50% of the black men to vote Republican. But most white men are going to vote Republican. White women are going to be split. See, the problem I have when I look at the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is nothing but a bunch of loudmouth women, feminist women, beta males, simps, and sweet guys, and transgenders. Now, I don't care what you do on your off time. See, the problem is the left wants to push their agenda on the whole country. We're not California, we're not Illinois, we're not Massachusetts, and we're not New York. And the bottom line is this. Here in America, it's supposed to be a free country. Well, basically, Americans don't operate as a free country. Government has been expanding over the years. Now, you do need government. Nobody's saying we don't want government. We don't want government running every aspect of our lives. And then you have a number of unelected officials who are trying to run this country as well. And this is what was happening during the George Bush era. Now, if you look at a lot of your prime ministers too, just like other countries, they're figureheads. The president is also a figurehead. But the president has power. The president has been granted the powers of executive orders. Now, are some of the executive orders going to be challenged? Yes, they are going to be challenged. But what you need to know is you have to have an idea of how the balance of powers should work. Most people don't know how the balance of powers work. And you cannot vote on emotions. A lot of people vote on their emotions. You need to know what you're voting for. And when it comes to tariffs, don't listen to the mainstream media. In fact, don't even trust the mainstream media. If you think about all this liberalism or progressivism, this socialism has eroded media, colleges, jobs, government, and religion. Those are the 5 power conferences of society. So besides a gender war, I think the war is a spiritual war. I'm going to take it a little further than that. I think the war is tradition versus imagination. Because if you look at all the movies, particularly when you got a woman in the movie, the woman's a warrior princess whooping up 6 or 7 guys, which you know that's not going to happen in real life. This is the image that the left is projecting. And when women believe this, they think they're going to go out and do it. And then they're going to get an ass whooping. I've watched Tyler Perry, where the women have all to say. And you look at a number of women in power, they think they have all the brains. They really don't have all the brains. They think they do. And a lot of people in this country have arrested development, cognitive dissonance. They don't know anything, so they think on an emotional level. So basically, when it comes to this country, you need to know who you're voting for and what you're voting for. And you need to sit down. If you're going to vote for a candidate, look at the voting record. And you have to understand that the courts in this country, a lot of activist judges. See, the Democrats' plan all along is to keep Donald Trump from pushing his agenda. So even if the Democrats don't win in 2026, they think they're going to win the midterms. The way they're going, they might not be in power for a while. Let's hope so, because stupid is, stupid does. You have a number of stupid American people. And because these Americans are so stupid, they don't know any better. Americans are very gullible. They want things now. They're impatient people. You have a number of lazy Americans. Because basically, be honest, Americans want a welfare state. Why? Well, they want somebody else to do the heavy lifting. That's why you don't have a lot of innovations today. Everything today is all made up on paper, drawn up on paper, but not built. The proposal, it's an image. What Americans see. We don't have enough Americans today who are fighters anymore. Even our politicians, because they've been bought and sold. And it's just one play after another on both sides. We have a bunch of people, you can come out with all the statistics you want. You have to look at history. And when it comes to DEI, I don't have a problem with blacks getting their due. They should. But the problem is blacks keep including brown people. Well, all these other so-called minority groups, what the blacks fought for, the feminists piggybacked off the blacks. So did the alphabet community. And now you have a number of the illegals. They're saying how blacks didn't back them up. Not our job. But when it comes to DEI, people who are ahead of us are white women, then your Hispanic women, your Asian women, then you have your men, your Asian men, and we're at the bottom. We're below veterans. And then you have your basically the individuals who are running everything are your white women and your alphabet community. It's all backwards. And that's the problem with DEI. There's really no diversity on the skill. It's diversity based on what I look like. That's not freedom. And the Democratic Party, they're against America, period. And I'm just going to say this. I don't care which side of the fence you sit, because if they're Republicans, because you have a number of rhinos too, establishments. You have people who don't care about what's going on. And because they don't care about what's going on, they believe that this country is theirs. And that's what the Democrats believe that they can bully everybody into believing what they believe in, or there's going to be consequences. And we can't allow ourselves to be bullied by the Democratic Party. And we can't allow ourselves to be bullied by the mainstream media. Sooner or later, Donald Trump is going to have to unleash the military. Now, is it going to be some form of martial law? I don't believe so. But we need, you have it where if a radio station is putting out propaganda, the Democrats don't want them to shut that propaganda machine down. They want the lies to continue. The Democrats want people to come in and out of this country without any accountability. They want a welfare state. They want to do everything for everybody else except their own American people. The Democrats promote losers. They don't promote winners. That's the problem. And in this country, we have too many people who are losers who've been given that microphone and what they've done based on what they deem as not fair. And some of these individuals aren't even lifting a finger to even participate in this country, but they think because they have an opinion and they can talk, well, they're talking loud and aren't saying anything. They don't have any power. And having an opinion to a lot of the Democrats makes them believe they have power. The bottom line is, when you have a public that's stuck on stupid, we will never have any changes. And when these politicians go out and speak, all they're doing is blowing smoke up your ass. But it's going to take individuals to start asking the questions. And I will say what the Republicans need to do, start going on these liberal channels and getting in these liberals' faces. These liberals will get in the Republicans' faces. They'll come and burn people's businesses. I don't advocate violence. The left advocates violence. When they don't get their way, they're like children. When they don't get their way, they want to try to threaten you with violence. The left doesn't care about families unless they're alphabet families, single mothers. They don't believe in fathers. Hell, they don't even believe in mothers. They're demonic in their thinking. And when you elect people who are demonic and your life is destroyed, I'm just going to say this. Maybe you'll wake up. But in the meantime, many of you Americans are asleep at the wheel. But if you don't wake up, the freedom that you talk about will be gone. And we'll be under authoritarian government. And in the end, you want to be like a China? Or do you want to be American, where you have a chance to be an owner, have your own money, build your own business? Because under communism is prison. The American way of life, other countries, they don't like it. They're jealous. They want to destroy it. Because many of these countries are authoritarian themselves. And in the end, you want to be a prisoner, or you want to be a free soul? You be the judge. With my answer, I want to be able to be free. And if freedom is what you want, freedom is what you have to continue to fight for. Because right now, the battle is not really left versus right. It's good old fashioned good versus evil. And if you don't believe me, you look around you. Because you have a person in office that the Democrats don't like. They're going to make up all kinds of propaganda to try to get you as a voter to vote for them. Look what happened in 2020. And you get the government you get based off of your stupidity and not researching the candidates. And the final question is, do you want a country? And if you want a country, what type of country do you want? Do you want a authoritarian country, or do you want a free country? If you want a free country, then you belong here. If you want an authoritarian country, leave and go live under authoritarianism. But in the end, you'll be back. Why? Because you liberals out there who think communism is great, but once you live under communism, you're going to appreciate freedom. Because as much as you think you love communism, socialism, you've never lived under it. And that's why you can spout the good things about communism. But once you experience it, you will come back to the real world. Because in the end, freedom is the only way to go. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, you check out my second channel. Produce videos Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, formerly the Mind of STEM. On the QCIS channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And here's where you can find me. For the 401 Talk Zone radio show, you can find me right here on YouTube. Also post videos on Rumble, X, formerly Twitter, and Truth Social. And for the QCIS channel, those videos right here on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And in the end, always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. Once again, thank you for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You ought to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.